Have you ever wanted to make your own living dex? How about a living form dex? And you're just not sure where to start? Well, I may just have the solution for you. Last summer, I decided I was going to create a living form dex from scratch with no outside help. I have one Switch, one of each Switch Pokemon game, and a subscription to Pokemon Home that'll be used exclusively for Pokemon storage. This means no trading. Not for evolutions, not for version exclusives, not for anything. Now, some of you may be wondering, what exactly is a living dex? Well, a living dex is, quite simply, having one of every Pokemon in your PC boxes or home. So, instead of getting a Bulbasaur and then evolving it into Ivysaur and then Venusaur, you get a Bulbasaur, an Ivysaur, and a Venusaur, and then put all three into your storage. The living form dex is just one step beyond, where not only do you fill the requirements of the living dex, but you get all the boxable forms as well. I will add that since the living dex is being stored in home, held item based form changes will be excluded due to items being unavailable in home. So this means that instead of just getting one Rotom, you get all 6 forms of Rotom, but only one Giratina due to it needing a held item to transform. I will add that while I am planning on getting all forms, there are a few things I will be excluding. These being making sure the Pokemon have the Gmax mark, as well as most of the gender differences. These both are very simple, and if you can get a Pokemon at all, you can get the Gmax mark or the gender difference, guaranteed. So I believe they aren't overly necessary for the intent of this challenge, and I also just don't want to get all the gender differences again. Now, for anyone familiar with this channel, you may know that I already have my Dex's project, which is a kinda over-the-top living dex I've been working on for a few years now. And you may be wondering why I decided to do a bulk of it again. The simple answer is that I thought it would be fun to start one from scratch and see how fast I could achieve it. Add in the restrictions I put in place, such as only one Switch and no trading. I thought it would be cool to see what is the absolute furthest someone could go playing purely single player. Not everyone has multiple Switches, or a circle of friends that play these games, so showcasing how much you can achieve alone with only the current games will let us know if you can, in fact, catch them all. For a quick overview of what is needed for this project, if you want to attempt it yourself, you will need a Switch. Any model will do. You will need a copy of either Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee. The version you pick should not matter. I personally went with Eevee. You will need specifically Brilliant Diamond, for reasons that will be discussed later. And you will need Legends Arceus, both Sword and Shield, as well as both Scarlet and Violet. If you want a convenient place to store everything, a home sub will also need to be tacked on. So in total, you need one Switch, 7 games, and a subscription to Pokemon Home. And I believe that's all the preliminary info we need to go over. And so now it's time to get into the journey. Legends Arceus would be the seemingly best place to start, as you need to catch everything in that game to get Arceus. However, for specific reasons, Brilliant Diamond will be the first game we play. Starting in Brilliant Diamond, we name ourselves Turtle, like we will for every other game in this challenge. The first Pokemon we technically obtain in this challenge will be Turtwig, who we name Soup. Now, since this is a video about catching Pokemon, and that all of these games have already been well covered throughout the years, we are not going to go super deep into the stories of any of them. Furthermore, none of the Pokemon we obtain in this game for right now will actually be used for this challenge, so we can kinda just breeze along. We beat all the gyms, we become the champion, we unlock the National Dex, and then we position ourselves at Backlot's mansion, due to needing something from his prize trophy garden. And with that, we are finished with Brilliant Diamond for now. As Brilliant Diamond serves as mostly a preparation for something later down the line, it's time to actually really start with something in this challenge, and that is with Legends Arceus. This game features only 242 Pokemon. And again, since this video isn't really a recap of playthroughs, there's not a whole lot to talk about for this right now. The main objective of this game is to catch every single Pokemon, and so that is what we will do. I will not call out all of them, as doing so will set a precedent leading to this video becoming far too long. Instead, we will just montage collecting everything. So we have an almost full Legends Arceus living dex, missing some of the starters and a Shieldon. I could have gotten them in here, but there will be easier ways to fill in these couple holes later down the road. We also caught the extra Burmy and Wormadam coats, EC Shellos, and all of the unknown, giving us almost every alt form we can get from this game. Another thing we missed on this run through is catching Shaman and Darkrai, as they require save files from other games to get access to them. We have the Brilliant Diamond save file we need, but we will wait until we can get a Sword or Shield save file so we can catch both of them at once. With the end of our quick Legends Arceus recap, we move on to the playthrough of the story in Shield. Sword and Shield are very special games if you own the DLC, as you can access the DLC areas right after entering the wild area for the very first time. So we can head straight to the Crown Tundra. Right off the bat, you will need to fight Peony, who has a team of level 70 Pokémon. However, you don't actually need to beat him. Even if you lose, you can still proceed forward with the DLC. And so we run straight for the Dynamax adventures. Not just because we have to for the story of the Crown Tundra, but because it's where we will be getting the real starter of our run. Dynamax Adventures is a minigame, and where you use rental Pokémon to fight Dynamaxed Pokémon, including legendaries. While you can only keep one Pokémon you catch per run, the Pokémon will obey you no matter what. And so with that, we very quickly add Suicune, Yveltal, and Heatran to our team, allowing for a very speedy playthrough of the game. Before we return to the main game, we will make a quick pit stop into the Isle of Armor, so that we can pick up Kubfu, allowing for it to start gaining levels before we have to evolve it. We also get a Squirtle that will also be named Soup, just to keep up with the theme. Onto the main game, we just kind of fly through all the gyms. We also catch a Sizzlipede in the fire gym. We then catch a Eternatus, and then beat the unbeatable champion Leon. To get the rest of the save file prepped for later, we go on a bit of a legendary catching spree. With the evolution of Urshifu, it's time to take a break from the Galar region and set our sights towards Paldea. As we move into Violet, we will start by once again trying to quickly move through the main story of the game. We choose Fuecoco as our starter and catch the tutorial Lechonk. We give a robot a sandwich, get all the badges, catch a few Pokemon, evolve them along the way, beat the game, and get jump scared by Ed Sheeran. Next up, we start the DLC, where we meet the Ogre, beat the Loyal 3, and then catch the Ogre. We follow that up with catching a few Pokemon to unlock the False Swipe TM. We then make it to DLC 2, where we grind BP to buy all the Terrarium upgrades. We beat the Elite Four and catch some Pokemon. We beat the champion, catch Terrapagos, get jump scared by Ed Sheeran again, start the epilogue, catch Petrunt, and now we can go on to make a montage of catching almost everything in Violet, besides what is available in Legends. During our catching spree, we had to find a raid for an Alolan Golem. Without trading, I believe this is the only way to get an Alolan Golem in any of the core series games. While on the grind of catching everything, I came across my first shiny in the entire challenge. That being a shiny Banette. Since I was recording just bulk footage of catching stuff, I didn't have my mic on to catch my reaction. But the main gist of it was being pretty happy as this was 90 hours into this challenge. I had played through all of Legends Arceus and almost all of Violet before seeing some sparkles. I unfortunately didn't get to use this Banette, as I was getting pretty close to being ready to move on to the next part of this challenge. But a shiny is a shiny. With that, we continue on with our montage. After clearing out the bulk of what we need in Gen 9, we come to what is the last stop for now, being Snacksworth, who gives you access to legendaries in the post-game. Very importantly, he gives access to Kubfu, which allows us the third one we need without needing to start an extra save file of either Sword or Shield. Speaking of, now that we have the Shield save file, we can now return to Legends Arceus to catch both Shaman and Darkrai. And there we have what I see as mostly the first half of this challenge, as we've caught a lot of the easy stuff, and this is the first time I properly deposit Pokemon into home. To this point, it's been very easy to keep track of what Pokemon we have, as we completed Legends Arceus, and then in Violet, we needed to just catch every Pokemon that wasn't in Legends Arceus. Moving forward, that will get a lot trickier to keep track of, and so this is when I started the month-long home sub to finally touch base and see where we were sitting. I forgot to record an overview of what the living decks look like at this point, and I'm not able to find a nice way to display me depositing Pokemon over the span of an hour and a half, so long story short, we have 702 Pokemon registered in the Pokédex, and 765 Pokemon deposited overall. 702 out of 1025 already seems like a lot, but things will definitely start slowing down at this point, as well as needing a lot more of the forms that aren't part of that count. I don't have an exact count of the total number of Pokemon we need to catch including all forms, but I believe it's somewhere roughly around 1,200 to 1,300 Pokemon. And so, with knowing this information, seeing that we have 765 deposited, you can see we still have a bit more of a ways to go. With knowing this information, we are now able to proceed with catching what we need from Pokemon Shield. Before hopping back into it, I would like to ask that if you are enjoying the video, to please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Doing any or all of these is really truly appreciated, as they really do help out the video and the channel. Also, if this type of video is something you enjoy, please do let me know, as I would love to make more content like this. Alright, back to the video. Having our sights now locked into what we need from the Galar region, we return to Shield for yet another catching montage. Yeah, this one is pretty short, as this is the point where we start jumping between the games a lot. So we now return to the faithful remake Brilliant Diamond, as it's finally time to get the elusive Pokemon exclusive to the Trophy Garden. I will note, while the Pokemon here do proceed in numerical order, they only progress each day if you actually load in and talk to Backlot, so I'm doing this about a week later than I probably could have, but here we are. In the garden, we have the very elusive Cast form. That's not even all for this game, as there are a few other Pokemon that are either exclusive or are most convenient to get in this game. These being Farfetch'd, an Nincada I caught for some reason, Kecleon, who is not only exclusive to the Gen 4 remakes, but specifically Brilliant Diamond. This guy right here is the reason you need to play Brilliant Diamond over Shining Pearl. I do not know why they made it exclusive to this game, especially when there is a Poketch app that requires you to have one to unlock it. We also have Ledian, Jotonian Corsola, Clamperl, Hoennian Zigzagoon, Skitty, and Swellow. We do some breeding to get Lediba and Tailo, and then evolve for Hoenn and Linoone. Delcatty, however, we need to find a Moonstone, in which I spent over 5 hours digging in the underground for it. But after we get it, we can evolve Delcatty and finish off what we needed from Brilliant Diamond. Moving back to Shield, we continue catching some Pokémon. The wild areas in these games have specific dates where a single weather sprawls an entire area. Using this, we are able to find some much needed spawns, being trade evolutions. While the games outside of Legends Arceus still require you to actually trade to evolve these Pokémon, thankfully, most of the trade evolutions can actually be caught in some manner in at least one of the Switch games. After finishing that quick catching stint in Shield, we now find ourselves in yet another game, this time being Let's Go Eevee. There are only 2 Pokémon actually exclusive to the Let's Go games, with those being Alolan Rattata and Alolan Raticate. However, we can use this game to catch some Pokémon easier than in other titles, such as Pidgey, who is catchable in Brilliant Diamond, but is only found in daily swarms, which is completely random each day. So, in Let's Go, we catch Rattata, Pidgey, Weedle, Kakuna, and Spearow. We trade a couple of Cantonian Rattatas for some Alolan ones, and then we evolve for a Beedrill and Alolan Raticate. Now, since the Alolan Rats are the only ones we really needed Let's Go for, due to being the only games with them on the Switch, once we evolved Alolan Raticate, we are good to move the rest of the Pokemon we need to evolve into another game to speed it up. And so we go back to Brilliant Diamond for the final time, where we evolve for Pidgeotto, Cantonian Raticate, Fearow, and Pidgeot. Also, much like in Legends Arceus, this game has some mythical Pokemon locked behind other game save files. So we can now get Mew and Jirachi. This marks the end of our time with both Brilliant Diamond and Let's Go, and now we can once again return to collecting Pokemon in Shield. Here we had to gather up all the fossil pieces needed for the Galar fossil Pokemon, and we easily nab up all 4. Our final catch for now in this game is yet another trade evolution, being Aromatisse, which is exclusive to raids and Shield. With that all sorted, we deposit everything we now have into home, bringing us up to the count of 919 out of 1025 for the Pokédex, and a grand total of 994 Pokemon deposited overall. No longer able to postpone it any further, now is the time to replay the other versions of games we've already played to pick up all of the exclusives. And so first up is Scarlet version. Now, we need 2 more starters from these games, so we are going to pick Sprigatito, deposit it into home, and reset our save file. Now, we start Scarlet yet again, and this time we pick up Quaxly, before dropping it into home as well. I move them both into Violet, Sprigatito just because we need to evolve it, and Quaxly so I can overlevel the starter and hopefully speed up the playthrough by not needing to train up many Pokemon. Our now level 80 starter destroys everything in its path. We also catch the blue and green Squawkabilly here, as they were just right in my path throughout the story, and because you need 3 Pokemon to do the Team Star bases. I was dead set on not using much else other than my starter for this playthrough, but something caused me to actually change this perspective. I found a shiny Sneasel while making my way through the story. I was really torn on using this, as it's a far lower level than my starter, but I do have a personal rule of always using a shiny that I find during a playthrough. And so, a shiny Sneasel was added to my team. Again, much like with Banette, I didn't have my mic plugged in, so no live reaction, but I can tell you, it was nothing super spectacular. As I continued on throughout the story, I was running through the desert, and something caught my eye. A shiny Tinkatuff. I'm very thankful that I knew what the shiny looked like, as I probably would have ran right past it if I didn't. As if the game really wanted to reinforce that I made the right decision in choosing to add the shiny Sneasel to my team, it hits me with a second random full odd shiny during the story. I wish I had my reaction to this, as I was very, very happy. Not only finding 2 shinies in one playthrough, but both on the exact same day. For the first time since Heart Gold, I am able to play through a game story with 2 shinies, and this time, one wasn't even guaranteed. It's crazy to think that that is all the highlights for the main story of this game, but we really are just kind of speeding through. We got Ed Sheeran jump scared for the 3rd and thankfully last time of this video, with the story complete, it is time to clean up the exclusives. We play Pokemon Snap so that we can catch ourselves the Blood Moon Ursaluna, and then follow it up with catching the Paradox Beasts. We move back to Violet, where we need to catch Ursaluna again to be able to catch the Paradox Swords of Justice. And then we clean up some of our final hatches and evolutions in Paldea. Now it's time for us to tackle Sword. When getting our starter, we get an Alolan Persian before finally getting Ho-Oh and going on our journey catching up the exclusives we need. After cleaning up all of the exclusives, it's time for us to move on to the Dynamax Adventures, which contain a lot of the Pokemon we need to obtain, mostly legendaries. I did end up getting most of these twice, just to clear them out of the pool of available Pokemon, as each game has a few legendaries exclusive to it. The only one I actually needed twice though is Zygarde. Also, once a game has caught at least 5 Ultra Beasts, there is a gift Poipole, so I got both of those and evolved one into Nagandel. Also, when doing these Dynamax Adventures, I found something a little special. Okay. We missed the initial pop-up. Holy fuck. What the hell? I didn't have the mic in. Oh my god. Dude, I didn't think I'd get a fucking shiny. Lo and behold, one I actually need. Oh god, I'm sending pictures. The initial pop-off was like, oh, no way. Basically the pop-off I've had for every shiny in this project so far. Oh my god, this is... Do I count this as the random shiny? I guess this video already has like 3 shinies, but oh my god, a shiny fucking legendary for this video. This is insane. Getting this was really awesome, and one I deemed warranting a mic plugin to react live to it. A pure 1 in 300 odds Dynamax Adventures shiny legendary. It's crazy how it took 90 hours, basically half of the challenge, to find the first shiny, and then the second half contains some very, very memorable shiny moments for me. Now, we're going to bounce back to Paldea to do some more cleaning up, getting most of the remaining forms I need from Gen 9, as well as a Pokemon I haven't mentioned yet. Palafin, the evolution of Finizen, is a tricky one to evolve, as to do so you need to be in a Union Circle. However, for those stuck with single player, you can find it in raids. However, unlike Alolan Golem, it's not a 6-star raid, so you have to check every single raid crystal on the map in hopes of finding one. I very thankfully found mine on the first pass through. Now we are going to clean up some form groups, such as the Flabebe line forms, the Deerling line forms, the Rotom forms, the Minior forms, the Oricorio forms, and the Tatsugiri forms. Now we make a quick jump back to the Galar region to get the 10% Zygarde form, the Darmanitans, both Zen mode and not. We gather some Diglett to get a Alolan Meowth, Raichu, and Marowak, and then get all sizes of Pumpkaboo. The wild area has a static Gourgeist spawn, and I caught it a few times, and it seems to only be average size, and I believe that this is the only way to get it outside of trading. We make our final stop in the Legends Arceus, where we finally get EC Gastrodon that I forgot to get at the beginning, and then we do another round of forms in Paldea. The item printer introduced in the Blueberry Academy thankfully makes gathering the Alcremie sweets very easy. Way easier than the Scamomatic in the Isle of Armor. So, after gathering our sweets, I finally evolve an Alcremie for the first time, and then do it 62 more times. Since Shaman and Enamorous both have second forms that are boxable, I totally replay Legends Arceus for both of them and don't just take them from my main living decks. We do some form changing on the Genies and Shaman, and then end our very long journey by catching Meloetta, who I saved to be the final catch of our challenge just to have it be something nice and special and not just some random Pokemon. Alright, now it's time to show off the fruits of our labor. The final living form decks I created from scratch over the span of 50 days. We got a grand total of 998 Pokemon out of 1,025 species, which isn't bad. We're only missing 27. Those missing being Celebi, Spinda, Huntail, Gorbis, Deoxys, Victini, Patrat, Watchog, Pansage, Simisage, Pansear, Simisear, Panpour, Simipour, Genesect, Furfrou, Diancie, Hoopa, Volcanion, Marshadow, Magearna, Zeraora, Meltan, Melmetal, Zarude, Walking Wake, and Iron Leaves. The mythicals on this list are pretty self-explanatory. They just aren't catchable in any of the Switch titles. Though some are catchable in older titles, like Celebi in Crystal Virtual Console and Deoxys in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Also, a good chunk of them are obtainable in Pokemon Go. But these are mythical Pokemon. They kinda are expected to be a pain to get. So let's talk about the others. Patrat, Watchog, Pansage, Simisage, Pansear, Simisear, Panpour, Simipour, and Furfrou? These Pokemon are just not obtainable in any Switch game right now. When this video was being recorded, we only knew that Furfrou would appear in Legends Z to A. Since then, we have learned that the Patrat line and all of the elemental monkeys will also appear in this game, so that clears up 9 Pokemon right there. Also, being a Kalos Legends game, hopefully we see Diancie, Hoopa, and Volcanion all being catchable. Next, we have Huntail and Gorbis. These two are trade evolutions of Clamperl, and are the only trade evolutions you cannot either catch in the wild on the Switch or evolve in Legends Arceus. Walking Wake and Iron Leaves. These Pokemon were from special raids to promote the Scarlet and Violet DLC. They are exclusive to these raids, which only appear during limited time events, and are locked to 1 per save file. This is a very, very annoying situation, especially as they are part of trios, which have the other members catchable whenever in the DLC. Nothing we can really do about it but hope they make them permanently available sometime in the future. And now, last, but certainly not least, we have the oh-so-beloved Spinda. Spinda is only in one set of games on the Switch, being the Faithful Remake's Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. However, these games have the Spinda code messed up, which means that Spinda caught in BDSP are trapped in BDSP, and any Spinda in Home is trapped in Home. I have cursed this so many times. BDSP Spinda haunts me, it taunts me, it shakes me to my core. But this time, it actually is a blessing, and not a curse. As since BDSP is the only place to catch Spinda on the Switch, if it could move to Home, I'd be stuck waiting on a random daily swarm to get it. Yes, Spinda is locked to the dreaded daily swarms, The reason we caught Pidgey in Let's Go and not BDSP. And these Spinda not being able to enter home means that I don't have to be crushed waiting for the RNG of a Spinda swarm to appear. So probably the only time I will say it in my entire life, thank you BDSP Spinda for being so messed up. Now, this challenge was more than just the Pokemon species, but it was also about their forms. For the most part, if you could get a Pokemon, you could get all of its forms. This is true except for a select few situations. First up, I'll mention Furfrou, who we can't get anyway, but that means we also can't get all of its trims. And so far, the only way to even get the trims in home is through Go. Next we have Vivian, who has a total of 20 forms, and you can get the 18 regional patterns by transferring in postcards from specific parts of the world from Go. Because Go is not a Switch game, it is not allowed for the challenge, and so it saves me from trying to collect all the Vivian postcards in Go. Next we have Gourgeist. Much like Pumpkaboo, this Pokemon has 4 forms, being the 4 sizes. I really believe the static one is locked to being average, but it's possible I was just very unlucky. Zygarde technically has 4 forms, being the 10% and 50% forms, and then whether they have the power construct ability or not. I was not replaying Sword and Shield 2 more times to try to get more Zygarde wins in solo Dynamax adventures, and so I say the 2 is good enough. The forms of the unobtainable mythicals like Deoxys, Hoopa, and Magearna I feel are pretty self-explanatory, and I think the last 2 forms for what I count in my main living decks that I wasn't able to get are Battle Bond Greninja and Roaming Form Gimmighoul, which both just require non-Switch games to get. It actually surprised me just how many forms you can get, to the point where I started feeling like there wasn't much of a point in making this be a living form dex challenge. But stuff like Gourgeist made me glad I did it, as it led to me learning a possibly really niche fact about these games. Again, I'd like to state that I purposely left out gender differences in the Gmax forms, because you can just get all of them. There is really nothing special about them in this context, and they're really just extra fluff on top of the main core of this challenge. Now, I may have shown a blueprint on how you could do this yourself, but I would actually advise you don't follow this video. I did this by rushing through 7 different games in just under 2 months. Like, this video is perfectly followable if you want. I technically show how I got every Pokemon that I have in the home account at the end. But instead, I'd recommend you take it slow. Choose one game, and play as much of it as you want. If you want to start in Violet, go ahead. Or maybe you like Gen 8 more, so you want to make a majority of your catching in those games, so do it. Play through a game, catch as much as you want, but enjoy the ride. Make some memories along the way, and move on to the next game when you're ready, whether that's in a week or in a couple months. This isn't a race, it's a personal marathon. You get to set the pace, you get to decide the route. In the end, the only thing that really matters when doing something like this is that you are having fun. Looking back, I had a lot of fun working on this project, but it was far from a breeze. This video will be uploaded right before the 1-year marker of when I first started working on it, when I first made the save file in Brilliant Diamond. This video has been a monster looming over me for a majority of my time as a consistent Pokemon creator. I really like how this video has ultimately come together, and I know if I finished it even 6 months ago, it'd look far different. Maybe it'd be better, maybe it'd be worse. But this is what I've got to share with you all. This video is my heart and soul. I'd love to be able to keep doing more stuff like this in the future, to stop talking about these games as much and actually play the dang things, and hopefully through it, find avenues to help further entertain all of you. If it isn't already apparent enough, this video, as many are, is inspired by other videos and creators, and this one namely being inspired by Johnstone. Catching Pokemon is my favorite aspect of the series, and having someone really pave a way for videos about just that is really nice. And so I absolutely send thanks towards him for just being such an inspiration and paving the entire way for this video to even exist. I'd also like to thank all of my friends for being very understanding of me when I brought up big video as my reasoning for being busy at times, and for being very supportive and cheering me on along the way. And most importantly, I would like to thank the viewers. I know it's cliche, but if it was not for every single one of you who have subscribed, or liked, or commented, or watched one video, or even just watched 15 seconds before leaving after hearing my voice, I would not be sitting here, making some change by just sharing my lifelong love of Pokemon. And I truly hope we can keep going, reaching further and greater heights. As I've said, I would love to be able to make more videos like this in the future, and when I do, I plan to stream the footage live to my Twitch channel. So if you ever want to see some of this go down live, head to twitch.tv/BigBlast99 and drop a follow. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like or even subscribing. Doing so would be really greatly appreciated. Also, if you'd like to further support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. Doing so grants you special emotes and some member-exclusive content. I believe that is finally all I have to say this time. This has been BigBlast99. I would really, truly like to thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have yourselves a goddamn good one.